Hey, it's Meg with Seed to Fork, and it is early June, and it's time for a garden tour. I really want to share where the garden's at, what we've got growing, what has been harvested already this spring, which is a lot. It's been a great growing season so far. Pretty warm weather in May, not a ton of rain, but enough for the most part, and the garden's fully planted for the moment, which is a revolving door here, as you know, because we love to succession plant here and really make the most of our growing season. So I'm going to share with you what we've got growing in all of our beds, and I hope you enjoy seeing where we're at right now in the growing season. It's looking really beautiful. The earlier in the season is kind of my favorite time in the garden, and you'll see why. It's just so much hope in the garden right now. Things are very tidy still, and I just love this phase of the growing season. This is what I harvested this morning. It's our third broccoli head from our earliest planting. This is a variety called Blue Wind, and it's super early. You can see, hard to see in there, but there is a flower that's starting to open. It'll be really delicious in a stir fry. It's like perfect. I let it go longer than I might, so that was kind of a learning experience to know that it could go longer. And tons of kohlrabi. I'm not sure who was eating these, but the purple ones were totally snacked on, which is okay because I peeled them. So this is one of my earliest beds that I planted under row cover. These were planted under row cover in the middle of March. I took the cover off pretty early, and they are just starting to flower this week. It's the beginning of June. I added the lettuce sometime in April. I don't remember when. I've done multiple plantings of radishes in here. It's been a great little radish bed. And these carrots that I also planted in the middle of March are going to be ready really soon. So that's really great. And I've got a kale stuck in here that looks a little sad, but once the carrots come out, that'll have plenty of room to grow. So that's going to stay in here all season. And behind me, I've got more peas and more radishes. I've got beets tucked in here. Back here, I've got cucumbers on this new trellis that my husband built for my birthday. And I've got lettuce growing underneath that. And then I've got chickpeas on either side of that I'll show you. This is one of my favorite little beds right now. It has chickpeas, radish, and lettuce and cucumbers, which I did talk about just a little while ago. Another view. Looks really beautiful. And here's another succession of chickpeas. I sowed these about a week earlier. Okay, so this is our Espalier orchard. This is an apricot that flowered really beautifully, but not seeing any fruit. And then we've got 2 apple trees, and we've got a pear tree, and I'm sorry, not a pear. I lied. So we've got, besides the apricot, we've got plum trees here, and this is one of our 2 plums, and they flowered this spring. I've also got interplanted in this orchard, I've got some flowers. I've got chamomile and nasturtium and some violas, as well as strawberries. And here, this is what my husband uses. He takes care of the orchard. This is Surround. This is kale and clay. It's a physical barrier to protect against plum curculo. We also use it against Japanese beetles. Plum curculo is out now. He's seen some, and once the fruit gets a little larger, we do have some fruit on the plum tree for the first time. And once it gets a little larger, like here's one up here. Let me see if I can show you. Sorry. Fruit on the plum tree. I'm probably gonna knock it off and get in big trouble. Anyway, there's some fruit, but once it gets a little larger, we will put a sock over it, like a physical barrier, and that will hopefully protect it. I know there's more in here, but I'm not gonna be able to find them for you. So the other thing we have is violas, self-seeded. They're really cute. And I have lined this whole stretch with a bunch of different nasturtium. So I will probably keep showing this to you because it's gonna be really beautiful as the seasons wear on here. All right, so here's our garlic. This looks pretty good. I actually haven't fertilized it or anything since it went in last fall. I put fresh compost on it. Well, that's not true. Maybe we sprinkled some broadcast fertilizer on it last month when we were getting ready for the asparagus. Asparagus is in need of harvesting here. I can see that. It's doing pretty well, and we interplanted in the middle with larkspur this year, which has kind of similar foliage, but tall, spiky, bluish purple flowers, and it's gonna look pretty fabulous in July. All right, so our earliest bed, this was the bed that was hooped. I don't think it was hooped at the end of last month's tour, but things were definitely not harvested, and look, lots and lots of things have been harvested. So I had cabbage here. I can see the stumps. I left them in place. I interplanted with beans already, and the beans are up. These are two different kinds of bush beans. This broccoli we're just about done with. I'm gonna sow one more row of beans right in here. I'm gonna interplant some low-growing flowers with the kale. And then the rest of this, as it comes out, is gonna become a main season carrot bed, and which we will leave in probably until the fall. Start eating it as we need, but we've got other carrot beds right now. This is a Violetta cauliflower. This is called a Vita Verde. It's a cauliflower broccoli hybrid. So that's something new. I've got lots of radishes interplanted still. This is one I have not had yet. It's a new variety to us. This is my Romanesco that I thought I didn't plant, but yay! I just planted it in the wrong place. Last month I thought it was, I almost always plant it up there, but actually the beauty of this mistake is that the reason I usually plant it over there is because it finishes earlier than my broccoli, but because I used an early broccoli variety, I was able to clear that space out at the same time. Okay, so this is our tomato trellis system. We did this last year for the first time, and we really liked it. And so we basically replicated it this year. We reused the panels. We take them down and put them up every season. We use T-posts, zip ties, and cattle panel. And they're largely 8-foot lengths. But this, of course, I didn't think in 8-foot lengths when I laid this bed out. So we had to patch together a few extra pieces. So I will do a separate video on how I train them, but you can see that I've got temporary stakes to get these plants up to the bottom of the trellis. We leave the bottom open because I really want as much height as I can get. So stay tuned, and I will do a separate video on how I train these and how I trellis them and kind of this whole setup, so that you will have that information in one place. This is my second succession of brassica, because what you can't see right here are some kohlrabi. They're gonna be ready before I know it. I've got plenty in the fridge right now. We've got second succession of bok choy. It's gonna bolt really soon, so we'll be eating this the next week or so. I've got some Chinese cabbage in here. I was gonna do vertical gardening in here. This is actually gonna go back behind me. We lost one of our pear trees, and so I'm using that to grow some vining crops. I'm gonna grow birdhouse gourds there and some butternuts. So I'm gonna use these panels to go up against our espalier trellis behind me to do like a vertical gardening, little privacy hedge. So I've got beets under this trellis. I'm gonna do something else there, maybe carrots. I'm not quite sure yet, but I just got myself a little more square footage in here. Behind that, I've got broccoli, some Savoy cabbage, and some more iceberg lettuce. And you can see behind me our, this is just a portion of our strawberries. We've got strawberries that line our entire orchard. It's at least 500 square feet of just strawberries that are growing underneath our apple trees. They were hit by an early frost, or late frost, sorry. So the early blossoms were damaged, but it still looks like we're gonna get a lot of strawberries. I think what happens is, we're new to us, we don't know, but I think what I've read is that when you get hit with a late frost with strawberries, the first flush is always the largest fruit, so our fruit might not be as large this year, but I think it's still gonna be in the dozens and dozens of pounds. So we're really looking forward to that, which should happen here sometime in June. So I'm gonna show you the other side of the garden next. which is our longest beds, and I always plant those a little later so they're not quite as far along. These are our two longest beds. This bed on this side has two kinds of potatoes way at the end, and then I'm doing a cover crop like I did last spring. And I'm actually planting my brassicas there again once that cover crop comes out. The reason I put a cover crop in is so that I don't think I have open space, because I need to leave a little bit of our land fallow for my mid-July transplants. It's like June 5th, and I actually know for a fact that I need to start sowing my fall transplants this weekend. I gotta make soil blocks, and I've gotta I have some sowing charts ready. I'm gonna be doing lettuce, I'm gonna be doing lots of cabbage, and probably some more kale too. So, and then I'll be sowing a little bit more for the next, another month indoors, and then I'll do a lot of direct sowing. So, hard to believe that I just got the garden fully planted and now I have to start all over again, but that's just that's how our growing season is. So, what else do I have here? What can you see? I've got a summer squash here. I absolutely love this trellis. I set this up with the kids. They've been home a lot, so this was kind of an in-between school day kind of a thing. This is a very old trellis that we've used for many years. It's really tall and it's hard to harvest off of. It's probably at least 7 feet high, and then with a little bit of the raised bed, it's just, I find it a little unruly when I'm trying to harvest pole beans, like string beans. So I put two kinds of shelling beans on here, so I get to just leave this be all season long, and then I will harvest it all in one fell swoop and let them dry. So, and then in the meantime, I'm growing head lettuce underneath, which is growing really well. It's getting hot out. I've got head lettuce all over the place, and we really need to start eating it, harvesting it. Some is more heat tolerant than others, so I'm going to go for this red romaine first, along with my green iceberg, and then I'll move into my more heat tolerant lettuces, which I'm still sowing. So I recommend that if wherever you are, it's June, if you're in the north, try to find some heat tolerant lettuces and keep sowing them. I had really nice lettuce in August last year, and it was just such a joy. It's possible. They've done some great breeding. So anyway, this is our Determinate tomato bed. I have got it planted with sweet alyssum, which I love to interplant with my tomatoes. I've got some multi-branching sunflowers, which I've never grown before. I've got some radicchio, which after I got all excited about growing it, I read a little bit more about it, and I realized that it's better suited to fall weather. So it's in here. It's not going to be in here forever, but we are planning on putting up a very similar trellis system to what we do for the indeterminate tomatoes. These are supposed to stay a little more compact. They're determinate. They only produce for a specific amount of time, and because of that, they're not a vining crop, not as vining. So we're going to use the same panels, but we're going to bring them all the way down to the ground so they aren't as tall. So that's something we're probably going to get to this weekend. I hope you've enjoyed seeing the garden. I wish you could be here in person to see it. It's so peaceful in here, and beautiful and alive, and so grounding. Everyone needs a garden. I really, really believe this, and I hope wherever you are able to grow something and nourish your body and soul. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great month. Okay, so we did get these trellises up, and as I said, I was going to do them so that it sits on the ground, and so that's about 50 inches high at the top there. They're two 10-foot long panels, and we had a couple of extra ones here that I'm just going to stake and tie to these T-posts. And so I will go ahead and probably tie these back a little as they grow up, but this is just to give them a little bit of support. I've not grown determinate tomatoes, I don't think ever actually. And I sort of took a poll with my Instagram community, and it was like 90% of people said stake them. So because panels are what we use and enjoy, that's what we decided to do. And we already had the T-post, so it was really low cost. Looks kind of funky too. I kind of like it.